Chris Stewart once again for BamaFever.com here at SEC Football Media Days, joined by the voice of the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech. And no, they've not come back into the league. And no, we're not doing a retrospective. But Wes Durham, also the voice of the Atlanta Falcons as well, and the host of his own show along with Tony Barnhart on 790 The Zone. Without question, the longest intro I've ever given a guy, but you got to run through a lot. Okay. Welcome back for the first time in 16 years.
Yeah, since 1994 when I was doing Vanderbilt. Thanks. It's grown a little bit. There were 4 radio stations here in 1994 and about 300 credentialed media probably.
Best.
Now we're over 1,000 with 24 different radio stations. This is it's an unbelievable event. Actually, I was asked by somebody out of market, out of SEC territory yesterday, is it the biggest non-game media event in college sports? And I started thinking about it, and I said, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, there is no game to be played, but more than 1,000 of us showed up to cover it.
You've done your radio show here this week, and I want to talk, not just this year, but the last, I guess you and Tony started this last season.
Sure.
The perception again of Alabama back where it was when you and I were growing up,
sure,
and what we're accustomed to. And I know that even though it's an Atlanta-based show, you get people listening on the internet,
yeah,
or listening on their iPhones with a nice app for 790 The Zone, as I do on a daily basis.
Thank you.
But you're getting a lot of calls and a lot of talk about Alabama, I know, even though you're in Bulldog and Yellow Jacket territory.
And here's the thing, Chris, I have no problem making this statement. I think whatever team wins the West will be cannon fodder. The team from the East will be cannon fodder for the team from the West, and I think Alabama should be the favorite. Number one, I just like the way Coach Saban goes about it, and that's no disrespect to anybody else. I just kind of like the way the makeup goes along, the way he coaches the team. I happen to think that Trent Richardson is very capable of replacing Mark Ingram at the running back spot. I know there are a lot of other pieces, Julio Jones being one of them, some guys on defense as well, but in the end, they bring back more pieces and more power and more experience than anybody else, and that's why they're the preseason favorite. In Atlanta, well, first of all, you have to remember in Atlanta now 5 1/3 million people. You can pretty much have an alumni meeting of just about any school in the country, but Alabama clearly creates a lot of momentum, and I think Alabama's national success along with their regional success is the reason they've been so successful coming to the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic, which they will again in 13 to play Virginia Tech. That speaks alone of Alabama's reputation in Atlanta. But outside, even in the ACC with Georgia Tech, when Alabama played at Duke last year, it made a big impact on the ACC. It was a huge thing for Duke, obviously, with the crowd. But I think this is a team that's one of 6 today that I can see winning the national championship.
All right, you mentioned alumni meetings in Atlanta. You could easily have just on the Atlanta Falcons roster a pretty good gathering of alums when you got John Parker Wilson, now Julio Jones, and Mike Johnson there as well. And I want to start with John Parker because a guy who was maligned for a good bit of his career at Alabama, somewhat unfairly, because you open the media guide and here's your all-time total offense leader, a guy who tried to go about things the right way, and he's earned himself a nice way to make a living in the world if you can. Carry the clipboard of the NFL.
Well, you're the third guy behind Chris Redmond, who's obviously an established veteran, and Matt Ryan, who's the franchise quarterback. The thing I give John Parker a lot of credit with is he's gone and developed his spot, and he's gotten better. And you say, well, how do you know a third-string guy in the NFL has gotten better? Trust me, he's gotten better. He, first of all, supplanted DJ Shockley for the 3rd spot. Now, that was an interesting Georgia-Alabama confab for the Falcons to make a decision, but he's learned the offense. And Mike Mularkey, the Falcon offensive coordinator, is just tremendous. And JP's done a great job. I mean, he's a guy that fits in the Atlanta community. He's a guy that fits within the Falcon organization. He's just done a really fine job of continuing to grow as a professional. I'm excited about Mike Johnson. To be honest with you, Chris. I think Mike Johnson, depending on what transpires in free agency, the Falcons have 3 free agents. Once the deal is settled, Tyson Claypool, Harvey Dahl on the right side, Justin Blaylock on the left side, could all be free agents and be gone. If more than one goes, I think Mike Johnson's got an excellent chance to be a real big piece of what the Falcons do going forward. His ability to play guard and his limited ability maybe to play center is going to be a key thing for him. Paul Boudreau coaches the offensive line for the Falcons, does a great job. He and Paul have done both do. And Mike has really taken to that. And I think, again, it goes back to the experience of playing here at Alabama. What's that meant to him as he moves forward in his career? I think both guys are going to get chances. I don't know if John Parker's chance will ultimately come with the Falcons. It may come with another organization, and that's just the reality of the NFL. Mike Johnson's going to play for the Falcons at some point, and could very well be a starter here sooner than later.
And an All-American for the Crimson Tide, could be a starter, but yet he may not be the best former Alabama player as a blocker that you'll have on the offense next year. And I told you earlier today, Julio Jones, as great a receiver as he is, what he will bring maybe in the run game could be even bigger. I know you're excited.
I feel confident in telling you and folks who see this that I think the reason the Atlanta Falcons traded and made all the move they did to get to the top 5 or 6 picks in the draft was to get Julio Jones. There were a lot of people that would have liked the storybook line with A.J. Green, but after talking to some people and getting a feel for what was going down and the workouts and the visits they had with Julio leading up to the draft and the workout they had in Atlanta, what they saw at the combine, they think not only will he be a great wide receiver, he is devastating in the run game as a blocker. And when you've got Michael Turner, who's been to Pro Bowls, you've got Matt Ryan, you've got, again, veteran offensive line potentially through free agency. Tony Gonzalez, who's the day he retires 5 years later, he'll get a blazer for the Hall of Fame. Roddy White, who's now been to 3 straight Pro Bowls. Julio Jones on the other side will create an element for Atlanta offensively that hopefully is going to produce a lot of wins. The Falcons are using Julio Jones as a guy to complete what they are. Not just as an offense, but potentially as a football team, because they won 13-3 last year, and they feel like with Julio there, they've got a chance to go to the next level and stay there. That means that they're counting on him a lot. I think the toughness the kid had, and speaking with Coach Saban on the show today, the toughness he displays, the kind of young man he is, that means a lot to Arthur Blank and Rich McKay and the upper administration. But Thomas Dimitrov told me 2 months ago that it was the tape they saw of him in the run game from Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson and these other guys that sold them on making the move to get Julio Jones.
790thezone.com.
Thank you.
The Barnhart in Durham show, or I prefer to call it the Durham and Barnhart show. Just don't tell Tony. That's middays in Atlanta. That's also the home of the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech and the Atlanta Falcons.
And the Falcons.
And the guy that you can hear on all of those, Wes Durham, kind enough to join us. Always good to see you.
Thanks, my man.
Wes Durham joining us here on BamaFever.com.